The space technology that we have nowadays can seemingly do anything. We know that the human race has advanced a lot with space tech, but it looks like they're adapting it to help with things like agriculture and even deforestation. So stay tuned to today's video as we discuss how is space tech helping tackle deforestation. First up, how are they tackling deforestation with space technology? It seems like all this space tech we've been using to look into our space is actually now being used to help the planet. Companies like NASA and Tesla are helping to develop the sort of tech are always talking about saving the planet, but don't seem to do enough of it. However, now it looks like their technology is being used to stop things like deforestation, which is becoming a massive problem for the world. Conservationist Leonidas Nzigiyimpa says, "You can't manage what you don't know." He adds, "In order to improve the situation of forests, we need to use new technology." Mr. Nzigiyimpa is the chief warden of 5 protected forestry areas in the small Central African country of Burundi. For the past 2 decades, he and his team have been working with local communities to protect and manage the forest. His face lights up when he describes the fresh smell and beauty of the areas. "It's pure nature," he says. In carrying out his work, Mr. Nzigiyimpa has to consider a range of factors, from monitoring the impact of human actions and economies to tracking biodiversity and the impact of climate change, plus staff numbers and budgets. To help him track and record all of his research, Leonidas uses the latest version of a free piece of software which just sounds incredible. He is using the Integrated Management Effectiveness tool. This tool was created specifically for such environment work by a project group called Biopama. He says they use this kind of tool to train the managers of the site to use it to collect the best data they can and to analyze it. Then they can use the data to make good decisions on what to do next. Tracking and protecting the world's forests is very important for local communities, but also for economies that are most affected. Deforestation around the world actually contributes to climate change, and restoring forests would help combat it. Climate change is a massive problem right now, as areas like the UK are seeing some of the biggest effects in recent memory. There are heat waves constantly happening in the UK and around the world, and many of forgetting to talk about climate change around this. Around 10 million hectares, which is around 25 million acres of forests, are lost every year through deforestation. This accounts for 20% of all the world's carbon dioxide emissions as well. There are many companies and institutes trying to restore forests and other natural habitats throughout the globe. Many of these companies have been introduced to prevent and halt the reversing degradation of ecosystems worldwide. But just saying that we're going to restore, it's not enough, says Yelena Feingold, forestry officer at the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, of the United Nations. There's the need for responsible planning of how that ecosystem restoration is going to happen, followed by actions on the ground enabled by investments in restoration, and monitoring systems in place to track that ecosystem restoration. The rise of digital tools is rarely helped in managing forests, and has given a rise to the sort of technology used to create them. One of these is called Framework of Ecosystem Monitoring and is a website you can just Google. They launched the site around a year ago, and it uses satellites to highlight changes in forests around the world. The maps they have and data are accessible to anyone with an internet connection, even if they aren't a scientist or a government official. This means that normal people can see this key data and trying to help ours as much as possible or just learn about it. We use the reflected energy to map forests in 3D, including their height, canopy density, and carbon content, adds Dr. Duncanson, who is a leading expert in remote sensing. This is an exciting new technology because for decades we've been able to observe deforestation from space, but now with Getty we can assign the carbon emissions associated with forest lost for greater accuracy. There are so many companies monitoring the planet nowadays that deforestation is slowly not becoming as much of an issue as it was. Though it's definitely a massive issue for the longevity of the planet and for oxygen, it's definitely not as bad as it was because more people are directly involved with changing that. From companies that produce the ability to track this data, to those that actually go out there and try to help out, these people are slowly changing the world for the better, and it's great to see. What do you think about all of this? Please let us know down in the comments section below, and also tell us about your thoughts on the current state of space tech helping tackle deforestation. And now stay tuned for some other space news from the last few weeks. Next up, SpaceX have finally launched Starship, and their 3,000 3,000th Starlink satellite. It was a great day for SpaceX fans on August the 11th as they finally completed their two-engine static fire Starship launch less than 3 hours after they ignited the Raptor 2 engine installed on a rocket prototype for the first time. They did have an earlier test a few months back, but things went very wrong as they posted on Twitter. But they fixed the hitches and it went off amazingly on the 11th. As well as this, they also successfully launched their 3,000 satellite, apart from the Starlink group. They had to call off the launch for 3 hours after higher upper-level winds forced them to do so. But when they started the takeoff once again, things went down without a hitch. Falcon 9 was the name of this satellite, and it went off amazingly but also left the sky looking like a giant moon was in the place of the stars. Falcon 9 performed very normally. The booster lifted into the upper stages and the enclosed payload separated in the Earth's atmosphere as normal. They'll have no issue recovering that booster as they do all the time, trying to not produce waste through space travel. The deployment of the styling satellite was also confirmed on Twitter after the event happened. This means that Tesla have around 52 active satellites and have launched around 3,000 in their time. Of course, some satellites need to stop or be brought down because of issues, but the fact that they've launched 3,000 of them is incredible, as SpaceX hasn't actually been around that long compared to NASA. Over the next month, they've scheduled another 5 Starlink launches, which will be them trying to pursue a record-breaking launch cadence with Falcon 9. The next one is Starlink 33, which could be launching from California on August the 12th. However, they also report that another East Coast mission is working towards a mid-August launch pretty soon. If you do live around those areas, pay attention as you might be able to see the incredible launch pattern as it leaves the atmosphere. What did you think about this? Please let us know down in the comments section below as we want to hear your thoughts. Starlink has made some massive pushes over the last few years, and we can't wait to see what SpaceX has next up their sleeves. And finally, we have SpaceX has lost around $900 million in rural broadband subsidies. The final piece of information we're going to be going over today is actually a pretty bad one for SpaceX, as it seems that they've lost around $900 million. This is for its Starlink broadband service, as things have seemingly gone wrong. It was said on August the 10th by the Federal Communications Commission that SpaceX had failed to show that it could meet the requirements for the funds, which aims to incentivize expanding broadband services to more areas across the US. Basically, this means that they couldn't prove they had enough money to do what they wanted, which led them to lose their bid for nearly $900 million. The FCC said that they could not commit to this or could not afford to subsidize ventures that are not delivering the promised speeds and the money. SpaceX was awarded in 2020 these subsidies, but after losing this bid a few days ago, it seems like nothing will be happening with them, after they could not prove the money was there. They were going to be providing around 100 megabits per second for download and around 20 megabits for upload speed, which is pretty good as the technology has real promise in the future. Internet is always a pretty drastic thing depending on the area, as sometimes providers are really good and other times they're terrible. If SpaceX did get through here and styling was applied, these areas might have had better internet, but because they couldn't provide the money, things went downhill. And that's the end of today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed this latest video. If you did, would you please let us know down in the comments section below? It would be very helpful. Make sure to like the video, comment down below, and of course subscribe to the channel with the notification bell rung. Thank you for watching today's video. Bye!